So I've stayed away from answering this question definitively for a few reasons, but I think as I'm getting ready for the new year and I'm going in full force, and I just did a bunch of updates to my camera lineup, I'm finally going to answer the question that you guys keep asking me like crazy, which is, well, what do you like? What are you personally invested in? What do you actually use? And it's pretty obvious if you guys watch me live. And I think because you guys see me using every brand out there for all the new product announcements on other channels, I get to use all the brands, all the cameras, all the lenses, which is awesome. And I'm super grateful for. I'm very lucky because I get to see perspectives from all the brands, all their philosophies, and get things in my hands and actually experience things that I might have even thought of that I want in my gear going forward. So having said that, I think that leads to why you guys ask me that all the time. So as we get ready for the new year, I figured this is the time to answer it. So I'm going to go through all my cameras as of right now in the beginning of 2024 and why each one of them. So yeah, stick around. We've definitely got a lot to talk about. Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Seth Moran. I'm a pro photographer here in New York. If you didn't know that, this is my studio in Manhattan. Welcome. Sorry about all the stuff behind me. I'm throwing a bunch of random things around because I'm getting ready for a test shoot later. But while I got some time, I figured I would throw this light up, chuck this camera on a tripod, and put out a video for you guys because I want to keep this channel momentum going. You have helped me triple this channel in a few months, and I can't thank you enough. I'm on track to get to 100K, so hopefully I can keep cranking out videos for you guys, and maybe this will keep my momentum going. I don't know, whatever it is. But you guys have definitely been asking me a lot about what I personally use, so I figured we would go through that today. First things first, there is no sponsor to this video, and I am not sponsored by a camera brand. There is nothing here that was given to me. This is all my personal gear. I have paid for it and I'm still paying for it and all sorts of things. So, and we're going to go over some of that as well. But the reality is that I don't want people thinking that there's any bias here aside from the fact that I might actually like some of this stuff, right? But there's no brand influence here, okay? That said, I don't make this video too long, but you know how it goes. We do this in one shot, no script, so I'm probably going to ramble a bit. Let's go right into this with my primary camera. Actually, you know, I just noticed before I even do that, here we go with the ramble, right? I just realized I got my X-Men shirt on, and that's how I kind of look at my camera gear. Everything that I got here is an assembly to get going and create the things I want to create and be able to do what I got to do. And for various reasons, even if it's just the fact of having redundant kits in different locations so that I'm not carrying gear everywhere and I can just get to a place that I work often enough and I can shoot there. That said, I'm not going to go down that. Let's get going here. The first one up, which I call my primary, my workhorse, the ride or die, the thing that I go to if I don't know what I'm getting into work-wise, I'm not sure what's gonna happen out there, I don't know what I'm gonna be doing, but I know I just gotta get it done. Boom, the Nikon Z9. This is the primary of my kit. This is the one that you've probably seen in my hand for the majority of the last couple of years. And since it came out, I've had it and it's been great. And the more I use it, the more I like it. And I kind of hope that of all of our gears, that it makes you want to go shoot, that it doesn't fight you, that it doesn't do something that annoys you, that every time you pick it up, you just go. And this camera has gotten better and better and better as time goes on. And that's part of the reason I really enjoy the Z9 is that Nikon's supporting it so well. I think we're on our fourth firmware update. That is a significant firmware update, not just bug fixes, but like adding features, refining things, improving things. And it doesn't look like they're slowing down with that kind of support anytime soon. That said, this camera pretty much is everything I need for an all-arounder and everything I'm looking for in a camera, including little tiny quality of life things like having backlit buttons, which is amazing. If you work in a dark studio like I do sometimes, it's really annoying. Sometimes if you're not familiar with a camera, like just by feeling around for a button, just having the backlit buttons is a super amazing quality of life when you're not taking out your phone as like an auxiliary light just to see what you're doing. Or if you're someone that shoots maybe Astro or something and you're out there, you're able to see your buttons. It's stupid, but little things like that go a long way for me. I really enjoy the form factor of this thing. It is one body. It's not like I have to buy a grip and I know it's all sealed because usually when you have an add-on grip, you sacrifice a little bit of weather sealing. Not that I'm out there in the wild, you know, rainforest all the time or whatever, but like I said, if I don't know what I'm getting into, this thing can handle it. It's super fast. The autofocus is awesome. And the Nikon image quality is fantastic. A 46 megapixel sensor puts me right in the pocket of where I want to be for the commercial work that I do. And I do hear some people out there in forums go like, oh, it's noisy. No, it's not. I actually find this to be a very clean, high resolution sensor. And the people that kind of criticize the noise on sensors like this, I can quickly tell they probably haven't shot resolution like this before, or they haven't been in tune with the noise of ISO when they shoot out there. Like it's you have to kind of look at all those criticisms as who is saying it and what their actual experience is. So I actually find, in my opinion, based on the quarter of a century I've been doing this, it's actually pretty clean for a 46 megapixel sensor. That said, yeah, if they put out like a 24 megapixel stack sensor version of this, way cheaper, of course, because it's less resolution, I'm sure it would be like, it would murder. It would just be awesome. But I'm digressing here. Everything with this camera just works for me. The 2 CV Express Type B card slot is awesome. I love CV Express Type B. It's only getting cheaper and faster and larger capacities and more common out there. And it's just been awesome using that format because of all of that. And on top of that, you get full-size HDMI in this. I don't have to look for a special cable. I can get most of what I need anywhere because I don't have to look for a micro or a mini HDMI. No, it's full HDMI if I need to record something out of here for video. That said, it can handle video like no other camera I've probably had in this kind of class, which is fantastic. 8.3K, 12-bit, 60 frames per second raw internal video. You can do whatever you want to do as long as you got the cards for, right? I like the battery life. It has a flagship battery. It's not something I have to constantly swap out or worry about. It's not even in my mind half the time. And if I'm tethering, it's going to power while I'm tethered. It's just one thing after another. It's just been fantastic. And one thing I've really liked about the Nikon Z series from day one, I'm talking the first Z6, Z7, Gen 1, is they've had their custom function buttons inside the grip, which is right where my fingers are. And because of that, I'm not even dropping the camera off my face while I'm changing the way I'm shooting. The things like being able to kill my flash from squeezing a button inside the grip so that I can switch to my ambient light, then go back to strobe and shoot 2 different types of looks really, really quickly, or change my metering modes really, really fast, which does affect TTL for me. Or, you know, the fact that I can take the face detection off and go to single point. So now I'm going from their face, now I'm focusing on the jewelry, and I'm just working faster and faster and faster, and I'm just getting so much more stuff done. On top of that, I really like Nikon Z glass. I've actually been more invested in glass in this era than I ever have before in DSLR. I just keep on finding more and more things I'm liking about the glass. That said, this is one of those workflow changes for me, shooting video. I didn't really do that in the DSLR era. I didn't really have to worry about things as far as video goes, but because I'm shooting stills and video, I'm finding that there's lenses out there I'm looking for other applications, which I didn't have before. So that's part of the evolution talk that I'm going over here. That said, USB-C, all the stuff, it's super familiar to me. And while I've shot every brand and while I have owned every brand over the life of my career, I mean everything, except Phase. I didn't own a Phase 1. Anyway, we're getting way off topic. While I have owned every brand, at some point, they've always run alongside my Nikon kit. So I'm just super familiar with Nikon. I'm super familiar with the images I'm getting out of it, the color that I'm expecting out of it, the menus, all that stuff, everything, you know? So that said, this has been just awesome. And now it kind of feels lived in. It's just like, I'm just symbiotic with it at this point, and I'm just totally into it. So that said, is there any shortcomings to it? Sure. Form factor, it's a little bigger. It's not something I'm going to just chuck in a bag or keep on me all the time. Sometimes I need smaller form factor, or I'm doing something quick, or I just not even sure if I'm going to be shooting that day, but I need to make sure I have something on me. Who knows what's going to happen? This might not be the camera I throw on in that bag, you know, but this is staying in that primary kit that if I get a call, that's the bag I pick up, and that's what I'm leaving my crib with, you know? So that said, the Nikon Z9 has been great for me, and it's definitely a different camera from where it started. I don't know where they could go from here. Of course, they'll always find something, faster frames per second or whatever, but there hasn't been anything with this camera that I've gone, man, I wish it did this. Man, if only it did that. I don't care if it does 5 more frames per second. I don't care. You might, which is why I'm saying my needs and wants might be completely different from yours, and honestly, they kind of should be because we're doing different stuff and we're different people, right? The other thing about this is that I just feel very secure with them supporting it. They just have been super on the ball with that. And it as a pro, as someone that's kind of always worrying about how things are functioning, you never want the gear to be a problem. You want the gear to get you to a solution faster. So just knowing that there's always attention to the firmware and stuff, very, very cool. And I'm very excited to see where this goes from here. That said, form factor might be the issue for me here. Well, boom, Nikon Z8 for my secondary. This is basically a smaller form factor Z9. I mean, we're talking about pretty significant difference here. That said, there are a few sacrifices. I do like the fact that I'm able to get a second body that matches, that's a backup, that works the same way, that I can set up the same way and not have to worry about retraining or retooling my brain to work in a different way. If I grab a lower tier camera and there's something different in the menus or the buttons are different, no, this just matches and the image matches. So if there's something that happens during a job, because things happen, look, things break. Oh, you know what? I should actually respond to, hold on. I got a thought in my head. Don't forget, Seth. Things do happen. No matter what, gear is just gear. It's inanimate objects. Things can break, things can fall, things can just shut down. Anything can happen out there, right? So as much as I do have faith in this camera, I kept on getting a little weird about not having a second camera that could replace this when I needed to, if I needed to, or if I want to run two different lenses or whatever. What's great about this is that the Z8 comes at a way lower cost than the Z9, but gives me all the capability and all the stuff I'm familiar with, and I'm just jumping seamless. Sure, I don't have the vertical grip. Sure, I don't have that longer life battery, but I'm going into it already knowing that, and this is a camera I can throw in my bag because it's a smaller form factor. I just know that I can just take it with me if I need it, and I got all that great performance. That said, I do want to jump back to the Z9 and talk about this vertical grip because I do think there was a miss it just hit me as far as this grip goes. When I hold the camera like this, I have those three internal buttons, right? Well, over here, they don't exist. So as I'm used to leaning on those buttons for certain functions, if I use the camera like this, I don't have that ability. Those buttons don't exist next to these fingers. I think that's a big miss from Nikon. I don't know, maybe they don't care, but I definitely do. That said, it's not a deal breaker for me because no matter what, even when I'm shooting, my habits as a shooter has always been like this. Yeah, I know, I hear those comments, you guys, oh, use the vertical grip. Shut up, I'll shoot the way I wanna shoot, you shoot how you wanna shoot, okay? That said, there is a vertical grip for this. No, I will not be getting it. I gotta tell you, I can't believe what they put out as a vertical grip for this. I don't feel like it's seamless. I don't feel like it does much for the user as far as the experience goes. Yes, you get some more batteries. I'd rather just swap the battery than have a clunky, big, not into it, not into the grip. And I think they're basically saying, if you want the grip, just go get a Z9. I don't know. Either way, the one thing that I do think is a trade-off here is that this takes CFexpress Type B and SD. At first, I was like huffing and puffing. I'm like, oh, SD, I just want to be all in one memory format. And I think we're just in a place right now where it just can't be the format, right? So case in point, my MacBook Pro has an SD card slot. Maybe one day when CFexpress Type B becomes common enough, that slot changes in the M7, I don't know what it is, MacBook Pro turns into a CFexpress Type B, but for right now, it's SD cards. So when I have to transfer files quickly for some reason, or just load a firmware update or something, it's just a really nice interface. Or let's say I'm out there in the field, I don't have to really worry about if I can find a CFexpress Type B card, I can find an SD card. You can go to a drugstore now and get SD cards to get going. No, they're not the best, but at least it's there, right? You know, that said, it's just between these two, whether I'm out there in the field or in the studio, it doesn't matter. If I'm shooting action or stills or commercial or models or still life, whatever it is, these have been great. That said, there's definitely way more miles on my Z9 than my Z8 because I just picked this up. But I picked up the Z8 purely for the fact that I wanted a secondary camera. So I think it was a really cool move by Nikon to give people in the system like myself the option of having a backup body without paying full-on flagship pricing if you don't need it. And the form factor, you have that option for having a smaller form factor. That said, it takes the same EN-EL15 batteries that the rest of the lineup was taking. So my D850 batteries work in here. However, there are caveats. If you're in the Nikon system, you know the newer batteries are the ones you need to be able to power from USB-C or charge from USB-C. That said though, it's just cool that I have like so many batteries from this system. I'm not constantly changing. The charger's the same. It's sick. I dig it. I like it. And I think they just did a good job. So primary Nikon Z9, secondary Nikon Z8. Now, what's the rest of this stuff then? If you have your primary and you have your backup, what's with the other stuff? Well, sometimes I like to shoot differently. It's that simple. And this one I picked up because I had to jump on it. Let me just go into it. This is what I call my special projects camera. However, because as of right now, my workflow and clientele has been changing pretty dramatically, not dramatically, but definitely a shift. I am kind of seeing this turning into my primary camera. This is the GFX 100 II. This is the newest one, 102 megapixel medium format camera. And you may have seen on this channel, I did a video on my love and hate relationship with the GFX 100S, which I previously owned before this. That said, when this camera came out, the prices on the used market for the 100S and the original GFX 100, which I got to shoot in Tokyo. I got hand poke tattooed, used it in low light. I was so psyched on this camera after I shot with it. I was like, I can't believe it. But at the time, that camera was 10 grand. Way out of my price range, no matter what I was doing. I was just not that, I don't have that client list. I just don't have that kind of money, right? So I was like, it's a nice to have. Then the 100S came out and that was $6,000, brand new. Well, when this got introduced, those prices dropped crazy. I mean, the original, which was 10 grand, was hitting under $4,000. So I said to myself, if I don't sell my 100S now and get into the new 100 II, which is at $7,500 for the body, I'm gonna miss out here. Like, if I definitely wanted to upgrade, because this GFX 100 II is a significant improvement in the GFX lineup. I absolutely stand by that. It is a fantastic update to the line, and it gives you the best from the OG GFX 100 and the 100S, and some new stuff in between, including a new sensor and a new processor. Having said that, when I tried it out, my brain was like scraping at the back of my skull, like, oh my God, you have to find a way. I love the image quality out of this thing. I love the image quality out of the original GFX 100, and it's only gotten better with this. The autofocus, better with this. Faster frames per second, sleeker, cleaner. It's unbelievable. The noise at higher ISOs is like, whatever, I don't care. And you know, the form factor of this one really made a big difference for me as far as the way I was gonna go use it. So the GFX 100S was basically the size of a Z8. Well, so is this one, and you get the optional grip to make it basically this. So I'm getting kind of that same idea of the feel of a Z9 in my hand, or if I want to just use it as like the feel of a Z8, including the internal grip custom buttons, which means I can program it similar to my habits on the Z9 and Z8, so my brain is having to do less like recalibrating when I pick up a different system. And I don't know if there's any gamers that watch my channel, but you know what I'm talking about when you're deep into a game and it's a complex thing, you've got some crazy control set, and then something else comes out that you want to play and you go try that, then you go back to that original game and you can't remember the controls, but you're so far deep that you have to be at a skill level to really enjoy the game. That's kind of how I view cameras. You're used to this, and then you go pick up something else and you're like, and you can't get going. That's kind of what happens to me sometimes. Here with the GFX 100s and the Nikons, they kind of go well together. I don't know how else to explain it. There's definitely some differences on the GFX, and I am going to be doing a GFX 102 love-hate video, so stay tuned, subscribe to the channel if you want to get on top of that video when it comes out, because I know I've had a few requests for it, and I'm definitely doing it because there's a lot to talk about here. On top of that, the top screen. I love top screens on my cameras. Z9, Z8, top screen, GFX 102, top screen, and the GFX 102 also lets me kind of customize that top screen, and it kind of labels my custom buttons. I love this thing. So if for some reason I stayed away from the camera for a little bit, I just pick it up and I go, that's where my buttons are, that's where my things are, boom, I'm in it. I'm just so much easier. Let's just jump back to the grip and the form factor really quickly. So you'll notice that I have a tether cable on here, a USB-C cable, and I have a tether block on here. Well, this is one of the things I personally like about it. A while ago, the D850 had an external grip that lets you keep a battery in the body, one in the chamber, and batteries in the grip. Same thing here. You get a battery in the body and you get two in this grip. But what I like about this is that when I'm packing it, or let's say I'm doing something that like I don't want to tether yet, or I don't want to deal with having to put together a tether block and route a cable and all that stuff, I can just walk around with this and do some proofs, get some test shots going. Maybe even if I just want to jump out of the studio really quickly and jump outside really fast, I just disconnect and I'm good. And this is almost the same size and form factor of the Z8. So again, my hand feels familiar to it. I've got the internal custom buttons, all that stuff. Really, really like this. Now, the other thing about this is it packs down super clean because I can take the EVF off as well. Not that this is like a feature, and I'm not saying like you need to always take it off, but it definitely makes the camera smaller and easier to fit in things. And I just pack this in a different compartment or like next to it or something like that. Either way, it shrinks the size of the camera and it makes it easier for me to carry. A medium format setup that's easier to carry. What's not to love? This is been awesome since I've been hammering away at it. And again, the image quality out of it, it's just something different from the Nikons, and it definitely has its advantages, especially if you're doing something like a very quick lookbook for somebody, or if I have a client that does accessories and they need just like a bunch of shots of a model. So I could shoot somebody head to toe, crop into that necklace, crop into that bracelet, and give them a lot of stuff really quickly and images that they themselves can edit and do whatever they want to do with, because I don't care what they do with it. I'm not a guy that processes my images so much. I give them the images, knock yourself out, just pay me, all right? That said, they have so much more leeway with what they can do with the images because there's so much in those files. Sorry if you guys are hearing the radiator bang and bang, New York, old school radiators, old building. Anyway, moving on. It's got a lot of things going for it. And one of the things that kind of fits with the Nikon thing is CF Express Type B again, also SD cards. I don't really want SD cards on a medium format camera. I really just want to get into CF Express Type B. I thought it would be dual CFB, but it's not. It's similar to the Z8. But that said, I'm already in that headspace with the Z8, so it's not a pain point for me. Plus, I'm tethering almost always with this thing. When I'm not, yeah, I just shoot to the CF Express Type B card, and maybe if I throw a redundancy over to the SD card if I want to. Anyway, the one thing that's kind of hit me hard with this setup is when I had the GFX 100S, I didn't have any glass for it. I had like one lens, so I didn't use it as much because I was kind of limited on my viewpoint, right? Or whatever I was trying to do. And I grew the lenses out, but there's still so many more lenses to go that I want to have a fuller kit with. And I do think they have a long way to go themselves as far as fleshing out an even longer lens lineup for their the user base like me. That said, when I buy a lens for the Nikon system, I can use it so many ways. You're looking at me on a Nikon Z6. I can throw a lens there, I can throw it on my Z9, Z8, and another camera I got sitting next to me. That said, that investment goes a long way for me. With the G mount, this is it. This is all I got. And I don't have a backup because I'm kind of scraping by as it is, trying to afford this system how it is. That said, it's my special projects camera. I enjoy using it. I'm psyched on it. And every time I make a decision about a lens, I really have to be committed to that lens and get something out of it that I really want, because if you're a pro, you know that every dollar you spend, you need 3 of them coming back at some point. So it's going to be a little bit more of a slow burn for me to flesh out this system, but the image quality and the look and everything and the performance boost of this camera from the previous ones, I am just so into it. They did a great job and I really like it. And the fact that it's kind of, I don't know, what would you call it, like modular, just is like a super bonus to me. And I don't think that they did a bad job on the grip at all, because it absolutely 100% mirrors this grip. When I go here, there it is. I got my custom buttons right there. What the hell, Nikon? Whatever. Anyway, long story short, fantastic camera. I love it. More and more I use it, the more and more I like it, and that's the way I like it. I do think that we're going to be seeing some surprising things going forward with the GFX system, and I'm glad that I'm in it because I'm really enjoying the shots I'm getting out of it. So if there's any way of me knowing what I'm going into where I have maybe a little bit slower workflow, maybe I can, I don't need all the psychotic speed performance of the Z9. I'm going into this GFX 102, and at 8 frames per second, it's no slouch, and the autofocus, no slouch. They did a great job, and I'm very confident in it now, and I'm actually really looking forward to getting more and more used to the system, the look of the image, knowing it in my head a little bit better while I'm shooting. Very psyched on this. So let's recap a minute. Z9 primary, Z8 secondary, GFX 102 is like my special projects, but it's kind of creeping up into my primary slot, which is kind of scaring me because then I might have to get a secondary to match this. See how things evolve. So then what is this other stuff I got next to me? Well, this is a Z6 II. This is just an easy banger to have. Like I said, it's got the same batteries as the Z8, same lenses as the Z8, Z9. The fact that it's really, really tiny, I can throw it in a bag and barely realize I have it on me sometimes. It's a second camera. It's a B camera. If I'm doing video really quickly, I have a matching image, kind of, when I'm filming another angle with this if I need it. If I want to get into, for some reason, a lower light situation that I knew I was gonna crank the ISO ridiculous, 24 megapixel right there, nice. The one thing though is this is a lower tier camera, so you don't have what's going on in the Z9 and Z8, which is the newer processor XPEED 7, this is XPEED 6, and the other thing is this has a mechanical shutter, which no matter what camera system you're in, a mechanical shutter at some point will fail if it's used enough or how it's used, right? And not that I'm worried about this one blowing up. There's definitely some cameras out there that have been notorious for having shutters fail. And some have even had class action lawsuits against the brand because they failed before they were the number they were rated. That said, it's another reason I primary the Z9 and 8. I don't primary the Z8. Reason I go hard on the Z9 and Z8 is because there's no mechanical shutter, less wear and tear. In theory, these should hold value where I can trade them in later on if there's something new that comes along, or these have kind of gotten long in the tooth in my hand over the, your wear and tear, whatever. They should hold a pretty good amount of value because the shutter count isn't as critical as it is here. But that said, this is a pretty low cost camera as far as my lineup goes. That gives me just another option, a matching image, uses similar accessories. I like the form factor. I like what these cameras deliver as far as an image goes, and not for nothing, it's just a why not kind of a thing because of where the price point has been at. That said, I think we're going to see a Z6 III at some point this year, and depending on what it is, I got to make a decision if I really want to get into it. That said, the main thing that would make me want to jump into a Z6 III is if it has a matching processor to the Z9 and Z8, because then the menus match a little bit better. The autofocus system is basically the same, that you're using the same interface. Because right now it does feel a little disjointed if you go from one to the other. There's something like, yeah, it's very, very familiar, but there's just little things that just aren't, the same across a Z9 to a Z6 II. It just can't. They are a system that's pretty widespread. Anyway, that said, this is the if I don't have my Z on me, I'll throw this in a bag because, whatever, I don't know. Well, maybe we'll get into something. But I will say 24 megapixels, a lot of people go, oh, I need more res than that. Have you looked at a modern 24 megapixel sensor on any brand lately? It's phenomenal. So I always do like a little bit more res, but when I shoot this camera, I don't hate what I'm getting out of here. Light body, light files, just a banger. And then finally, wrapping up the core lineup, because there's always other stuff you're using, right? But my core lineup is going to be this, the Fujifilm X100V. This, you guys know this camera. This camera right here, super popular right now. It's everywhere. Some cool kid on TikTok said it's good. So now all those normies that aren't us bought them all up, right? I really love this camera. This is the camera I pick up when I don't want to feel like I'm working. This is the camera I pick up when I feel like I don't want to pick up a camera at all. I'm so fried. I don't want to do anything, or I feel like I'm stuck in my head and I can't really think in a creative manner. Cool. I'll get up, I'll pick up this camera, and I'll go walk this city, and I will find why I like shooting so much all over again. I really enjoy this camera. I primarily keep it in black and white, and that's kind of my palette cleanser. You don't really shoot too much black and white in commercial land, but I do love shooting black and white. In fact, I'm probably gonna be shooting black and white later today with the girl I got coming by later. That said, it's just an easy one to carry on you. You can literally just throw this in your bag and forget about it. It can charge via USB-C, so you're not killing the battery on this thing. You're not hammering away on it. So you're away. You throw it go to the hotel room, plug in a USB-C, and it's charging on its own. It's its own charger. It's got the built-in mechanical ND filter. Shoot nice and wide open if you want at f2, and then you can just throw a 4-stop ND filter anytime you want to knock out some of the ambient, but still get a shallow look if you want it. Beautiful. Leaf shutter. If you want to use strobe with it, which I do, you've got up to 2,000th of a second you can do with this thing. You don't have to worry about high-speed sync. Not even that. I mean, it's just got this like on-camera flash that you can use as a fill light while using faster shutter speeds. It's not that I'm saying like it's the best flash ever, but it's kind of nice to have there. Like I don't ever feel like I need to carry more junk with this camera. Does that make sense? I guess that's what I'm kind of getting at. And this is also the camera that, let's say a session goes kind of long and we're kind of like, all right, cool, we shot with all the big stuff. Sometimes it's like, hey, why don't we go out on the balcony and just take some casual shots? Or I'll just say, hey, why don't we take a break and we'll go out on the balcony, and then this is the camera I have on me, and no one really poses, and the models get a different kind of, headspace, and you get these candid, genuine shots that sometimes work really well too. I wish this thing tethered, because that's kind of how I use it sometimes. And you'll actually see people's demeanor change when you're shooting them with something like this as opposed to something like this, right? So, or like this beast right here, right? It's just a cool camera. They made so many right choices with it, and I do love black and white tones on Fujifilm sensors and their glass and everything. They did a great job. That said, maybe we'll see a new version of this too. I'm not too sure about that, but there isn't anything in this camera that I'm like, man, I wish it just, if you haven't seen it, I have a love-hate video on this camera. I have a love-hate video on the Z9, but it's from firmware version 1, which means it's way out of date because this camera completely changed. But stay tuned, because I'm going to do a love-hate of the GFX 102. I'm sure this video rambled on and on for too long, but this should have given you some kind of insight into what to consider in your own kits, like what are you doing with your money? What are you investing into? How do you make a system cohesive for yourself and work, right? Like I said, it's like the X-Men for me over here. I think that everything here serves a purpose, and it just keeps me shooting, keeps me working, keeps me going, and I don't ever have to go, oh man, if only no, I'm covered. Basically, I'm pretty much covered. And there's things that people, value that I don't. Some people really want way, way smaller cameras. I don't like super small cameras. If my finger gets stuck between the lens and the grip, it's a nightmare for me. I have to hold that camera all day sometimes. Or if I just feel like my hand's cramping up because we're using lenses that are off balance or whatever the problem is, I'm not a big fan of small. Hence Z9, hence GFX 100. I don't care. So you kind of have to judge for yourself what is valuable to you. What do you think is going to be the biggest factor for you as a person, as a shooter, as a creative? Resources. What do you have budget-wise to work with? Are you working? Are you making money from your equipment? If not, maybe that's another factor to put into your head of like, this is an investment, but it's not so much coming back to me as much as it is an investment to upgrade later. If there's a shiny new toy I want, I can trade in this Z9 for a higher value probably than something that had a mechanical shutter. That might be the hobbyist way of thinking of it as an investment, right? Or if it breaks, is there some kind of build quality to it that's known out there that is going to have to get it serviced? The cost goes up for you. It's unreliable. For me, one of the biggest nightmares in my head is gear failing on me randomly, because that means what am I going to do now, right? And for me, I got a room full of people expecting something to happen here. So that said, this video has probably been going on way too long. I apologize about that, but you know how I do things, right off the top of my head, no script, and we just go for it. But I just wanted to kind of give you guys an insight into what I consider important. And keep in mind, one of the major factors that led me to this lineup today is because I've already been in Nikon for so long. It's familiar to me. I have accessories, I have batteries, I had glass. I can adapt the DSLR glass to it. I know the image so well that alone could lead me to upgrading with inside the brand. There was nothing Nikon ever put out that I said, man, I better look elsewhere. No, keep in mind, specs always leapfrog, and the specs will always come. When one brand does something that seems revolutionary, the other brands will get there, if not more refined, because they didn't want to put out a first gen technology or something like that, or they've been working on it, or they just don't think it's time yet. So don't get too bogged down on what something has that you don't have. Kind of get into, well, how do they go about things? And if you don't know what I'm talking about as far as that goes, I'll put a link down below to a video I did about brand philosophy, which I think is the most important spec. How do they go about things? How do they do what they do? And does it align with what you're trying to do? Okay. This has gone way too long. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me here. My name is Seth Miranda, Last Ex-Witness on all social. And don't forget, join the Discord. You can hang out with people just like you and share some work, troubleshoot some things, share a bunch of insights you found out there, have discussions. This Discord is popping, and we're almost at 1,000 active members going on in there. So go ahead and hit the link down below for the Discord and go to the rules section, hit OK, and all the chats unlocked for you. As long as you're not a jerk, you get to stick around. Hey, that said, thank you guys so much. Don't forget to subscribe for the video coming up on the GFX 102 and some other stuff. Let me know down in those comments what you're using. Maybe there's some things that you've fleshed out that make sense. What's your primary? What's your secondary? Do you think you don't even need a secondary? Let me know down in those comments. It's super interesting the way we all go about things, and it might kind of give somebody insight into decisions they should make or that they didn't even think about. So hit those comments up. Man, I feel like I just talked forever, but I got to get to work. Look at all this stuff behind. I got to go. And I'm just going to close this out with one final thought. This might seem like a lot, but if you really know me, and if you paid attention to my channels for a long time, you'll know all the stuff behind me is what I really invest the most in, lighting. I find lighting to be the most important thing for what I'm personally doing. Someone that shoots wildlife might not care so much. So don't get bogged down on what other people are saying. Try to find the person you are, the photographer you are, the creative that you are, and the tools that let you do what you do. All right, guys, be good to each other out there, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.